Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. The Curse of Oak Island. Lot 5 reveals more mysterious artifacts and a tunnel dated to before discovery of Money Pit. This week on The Curse of Oak Island, the team delved deeper into the mysteries of Lot 5 and dated the tunnel under the garden shaft to before the original discovery of the Money Pit. This week's episode of Oak Island was so action-packed that monsters and critics decided it needed 2 recaps. Perhaps the biggest news was revealing the long-awaited Muon tomography survey, which highlighted 3 areas under the surface of the Money Pit area that need investigation. These 3 areas, one beside the garden shaft and 2 more to the southeast of the shaft, lie at varying depths and may be possible locations for buried treasure. Follow the link to read more about these discoveries. However, this week there were also significant developments on Lot 5, and the results of the carbon-14 dating conducted on wood found under the garden shaft were also significant. And, as to be expected, Gary Drayton unearthed another intriguing artifact. The team has a dedicated crew of archaeologists working on a couple of mysterious stone features on Lot 5. There is no historical record of any settlements in this area. Still, they have found 2 structures, which are currently described as a circular stone feature and a rectangular stone feature. Strange Lot 5 feature may be related to 18th century work on Oak Island's garden shaft. Helen Sheldon has been working on the rectangular feature, proving to be a mystery. The artifacts discovered there date back to the mid-1700s, the same era as the garden shaft, and some are older than the initial discovery of the Money Pit in 1795. The feature is strange because it appears to have been buried in a deliberate attempt to hide it. This week, the guys found an artifact that appeared to be a link in a chain. Perhaps it was used for hauling treasure? Also this week, the guys began an underground scanning operation at the circular feature. The data will take weeks to analyze, but they suspect they may have already found another underground structure. Elsewhere on Lot 5, Gary and Rick Lagina went hunting for more coins. Lot 5 has proved particularly lucrative for old coins, having recently turned up 5 coins, including a couple dating back to ancient Roman times. And they thought they'd found another one after pulling a small circular object out of the ground. However, archaeologists Laird Niven and Emma Culligan brought them down to earth a bit by pointing out it was a lead bag seal. Lead bag seals were used as fasteners to package large quantities of industrial and military goods. This one was inscribed with the words I. Lloyd Packers, which Laird learned was a packing company from London that packaged cloth for the British military. Laird wasn't sure of the date. He found a reference to the company dating from 1808, but suspected the artifact was even older. The seal used the letter I instead of J for John, a practice from Old English that started dying out in the 1500s. So there's a chance this seal is up to 500 years old. Marty Ladina also pointed out that it suggests a military application for the mysterious structures on Lot 5 as opposed to them being simple homesteads. Tunnel under the garden shaft could date as far back as the 17th century. Finally, on this week's episode, Craig Tester revealed the dates for wood recovered from the eastern side of the garden shaft. This piece was thought to come from a large tunnel that appears to run under the garden shaft and into the baby blob. The dates did not disappoint, indicating the wood was probably chopped down in the 17th or 18th centuries. This left the guys believing the tunnel could only be original depositor work. It's non-stop action on Oak Island at the moment. Long may it continue. In the misty dawn of a late autumn day when the fog clings to the island like a shroud, the air heavy with untold secrets, the team of intrepid treasure hunters assembled at Lot 5. The ground beneath them, thick with pine needles and the decay of centuries, had given up another of its ancient whispers. This time it was a fragment of something far older, far more ominous than anyone had anticipated. For years, Oak Island had been a place where legends and reality danced in the shadows, where dreams of buried treasure stirred the imaginations of those brave, or perhaps foolhardy, enough to dig beneath its soil. Lot 5, once considered a mundane corner of the island, had suddenly become the focal point of the latest chapter in this centuries-old saga. Rick and Marty Lagina, the brothers who had dedicated much of their lives to unraveling the mystery of Oak Island, stood at the edge of a newly unearthed tunnel. The air around it was thick with anticipation, the kind that made the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. The entrance was crudely hewn, the stones forming its mouth slick with moss and dampness. But it was the age of the tunnel that had sent shockwaves through the team. It was ancient, older than the discovery of the money pit by several centuries, perhaps millennia. How could this be? Rick whispered, his voice barely audible over the soft murmur of the sea in the distance. The tunnel seemed to beckon them, like a siren's call, luring them into the dark unknown. Marty, always the skeptic, yet driven by a relentless curiosity, was already devising a plan. "We need to send in the cameras first, see what we're dealing with." His voice, though calm, betrayed an undercurrent of excitement. They had uncovered countless artifacts over the years, coins, tools, and even pieces of parchment. But this tunnel, this ancient, undiscovered passageway, could be the key to everything. As the team lowered a camera into the tunnel, the screen flickered to life, showing the descent into the depths. The walls were rough, cut with tools that seemed too primitive for the timeline they had expected. Every foot further into the tunnel felt like peeling back layers of history, each one darker and more foreboding than the last. Suddenly, the camera paused, its lens capturing something partially buried in the sediment. It was an object small and delicate, glinting faintly in the artificial light. "What is that?" Marty asked, leaning closer to the screen. The object was retrieved with utmost care, revealing itself to be a pendant intricately carved with symbols none of the team recognized. The metal was tarnished, but the craftsmanship was unmistakably old, far older than anything they had ever discovered on the island. The symbols, swirling and enigmatic, seemed to pulse with a forgotten energy, as if the pendant itself were alive with the ancient history of the island. Rick held the pendant in his hand, feeling a strange warmth emanate from it. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed a threshold, that the island was finally ready to reveal its deepest secrets, but at a cost. As they continued to explore the tunnel, they found more artifacts, pieces of pottery, tools, and a strange, glassy stone that seemed out of place among the otherwise crude items. Each discovery added to the mystery, but it was the tunnel itself that held their attention. It twisted and turned in ways that defied logic, as though the island itself had reshaped over the centuries to protect whatever lay at its end. Then came the moment when the tunnel began to narrow, forcing the team to proceed single file. The air grew thick, heavy with the weight of untold years. Every step felt like a descent into the underworld, the darkness ahead impenetrable. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the tunnel ended. But it was not an end at all. Before them lay a chamber, vast and echoing, its ceiling lost in the gloom. In the center of the chamber stood a stone table, ancient and worn, and upon it, something that made every heart in the room skip a beat. A chest, bound with iron bands, its surface engraved with the same symbols as the pendant. No one spoke as Rick approached the chest. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that comes before a storm. As he reached out to touch it, a strange wind seemed to blow through the chamber, stirring the dust and sending a chill through the bones of every man present.